I have been around this community for a long time, maybe not Middle River, but Warren County. That's still Middle River, isn't it? But I do thank you for inviting me to come over. It's one of those things I enjoy preaching, but then I also enjoy the time off. Since I'm retired, we've tried to do a few things in our retirement, but I still come back to preaching and enjoy it. This morning, I read a lot. I don't read a lot. I read a lot of Max Lucado's books, and in one of his books, he talks about I need help, and he starts out with a story, and I can apply it to my own life, because how do you feel when you buy one of these boxes or you get a gift from somebody and it says on the box, some assembly required? Some. What does some mean? You know, I spent a mini Christmas Eve putting gifts together. And, you know, you try to put slot A and slot B and it just doesn't fit. Oh, maybe it's supposed to go in slot C, but that doesn't fit either. And then you go to get the screws, and you know they put two packages of screws in there, and one is maybe an 1/8 inch longer than the other, and I can't tell the difference between an 1/8 of an inch in bolts. But you better be sure to put the right one in the right spot, because it won't be long enough if you put it in the wrong hole or use the wrong one and think you got the right one. But as you put slot A and slot B, can we skip instructions 7 and 6 and just go to the end? You know, will it stand by itself if I don't put a screw that's left over? Will it stand by itself if it's a cupboard? But, you know, whatever, some assembly. And I really think that there are times that the devil puts little minions in those boxes. Those boxes, when you open them up and there's a bag of parts and there's not enough parts in there, or there's parts that's left over. Where did I miss the instruction to put that bolt or that screw? But some assembly required may not be the most welcome phrase when we see that box, but it's everywhere in life. It's everywhere we go. Think about marriage certificate, marriage licenses, marriage ceremonies. Some assembly is required. Job contracts. Some assembly is required. Babies, when they're born, should have big words on them. Some assembly required. Because it takes a lot of work to raise a child. But life is a gift. And on that gift, it says, some assembly required. Life comes in little pieces that need put together as we go through life. Some things slip away, like those bolts roll underneath the Davenport, and you wonder where in the world that bolt went that I can't put this thing together yet. Well, things in life slip away. We can't find the parts that we need. They don't fit together. A doesn't want to go into B. And when life doesn't fit together, you get tired of shoving that square peg in that round hole. And you get tired of looking for the lost pieces. So where do you turn? Where do you turn when you can't get it all together? When you haven't read the instructions, where do you turn? We turn to Jesus. Because the instructions are right here. The instructions are right here in our scripture if we'll read them. But it's like some assembly required. I don't want to read the instructions. I just want to put slot A and slot B and make it fit. But we need to take our problems, our lost pieces, our problems that we have, we need to take it to Jesus. Because Mary, the mother of Jesus, did. We think about National Women's Day. Didn't we just celebrate that this week or something? So I thought, well, we'll talk about Mary. She was the mother of Jesus, and she did. She took it to Jesus, the problems she had. If you'll turn with me in John, the 2nd chapter of John, verses 1 through 10. If you want to. If you don't want to, I'll read them to you. It's whatever you want to do. I'll be reading out of the NIV. As you can tell, that's the Bible I use a lot because it's got duct tape on the back of it. Now that's a good sign, isn't it? So on the third day, a wedding took place. The third day of the week, a wedding took place. That's Sunday, Monday. We don't have weddings on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever the third day is according to this, but they did back in Jesus' time because it was usually a week-long affair. But anyway, the wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there. And Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Dear woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My time has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood six stone water jars, whatever they are, the kind used for the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water so they may be filled," and they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine, and he did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then they called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." A wedding. Can you get anything more normal than a wedding for Jesus to come out, for Jesus to become the king that he was, the miracle worker that he was? It was a common wedding. It wasn't the king's daughter. It wasn't Prince Charles and whoever he's married to now, if he's even married. It wasn't a king. It wasn't a priest's son getting married. It was just an ordinary wedding. And Jesus and his mother had been invited to the wedding. So the guest list, and since Mary's on the list, Jesus and the disciples go, because Jesus has already chose his disciples. If you read a little bit further, we're only in the 2nd chapter of John, but it tells us he's already chose his disciples, and his disciples go with him. They're already following him wherever he goes, and Jesus goes where he's invited. If we invite him into our lives, he goes there. And we see him going to the wedding because he was invited. And while they were there, the wedding party runs out of wine. Now, if you're a good Quaker, you don't understand that because we don't have wine at our weddings. Now, I've been to a lot of weddings that have more than just wine, but they don't usually run out. But this wedding ran out of wine. Why? We don't know. It doesn't say. We just know that maybe they miscalculated how many people they invited. Maybe the RSVPs didn't come back as they had requested them to. Maybe people were thirstier than normal. Maybe Jesus brought too many friends with him since he came. Maybe. We don't know. Whatever the cause, whoever was to blame, the result was the bride and groom ran out of wine. They were gone, out of wine. Life gives us the same problem. We don't run out of wine. We don't drink wine at our house, so we never run out. But we run out of cash before the bills are all paid. We run out of energy on Wednesday instead of Friday when the week is over. We run out of fuel and the field's only half planted. Or maybe run out of corn and only the field's half planted. We run out of things. We're finished. We're empty. We're exhausted. Whatever you call it, we don't or we can't keep up anymore. We can't keep going. We're done. Finished. But let's get back to the wedding. I like weddings. I enjoy weddings. But at the wedding, in comes Mary. Mary must be the popular person at the wedding. I don't know. Maybe she's the hostess. I don't know. But Mary comes in, and remember, she's the mother of Jesus. She's the one that breastfed him. She's the one that changed his diapers. She's the one that raised him. And she was probably more connected to Jesus than anybody else, especially the disciples who just started following. They didn't understand. But she comes into Jesus and says, they're out of wine. They're out of wine. Not demanding, not bossy. She didn't come in and say, Jesus, get down to the local Hy-Vee and pick up some more wine so these people aren't embarrassed for running out of wine. No, she wasn't demanding. She wasn't critical. She didn't say, if only these people, this friend of yours or whoever had planned better, they wouldn't have ran out of wine. Mary didn't blame. She didn't blame Jesus. She didn't blame anybody. What kind of friend are you, Mary could have said. You let these people run out of wine. Well, no. She could have blamed herself. She could have said, it's my fault. Why didn't I check the wine before this thing started? Why didn't I do this? Why? Sometimes we degrade ourselves so bad because we blame ourselves for everything. And it wasn't her fault. So what was Jesus' response? They're out of wine. Now, to put it simple, very simple terms, the scripture gives us more words, but it could be just so. Isn't that the way we respond a lot of times? So? So what? What does that have to do with me? I'm just here as a guest. Don't tell me your problem, Mary. What was Mary's response to his so? Do what he tells you to do. Do whatever he tells you to do. And she walks away. Wow. Jesus had come to a wedding, not to start a ministry, but to just be a part of the wedding celebration. He was probably standing at one of those tables, big round tables you stand at and put your elbow on and have a Coke or a Mountain Dew while the popcorn's in the middle, you know. He's probably just sitting there with his disciples. But now he's got something to do. He's got a problem. Why is it up to me? He didn't want to start his ministry yet. But in that Mary's eye, can't you see that little sparkle? That strong-willed woman saying, just do what he tells you to do. Yeah, we know something's going to happen because I'm turning it over to Jesus. Well, this isn't the way we would write the story for Jesus. It's not the way he wanted it to happen. But Jesus sees Mary. And we see in Mary, she did 4 things. And on the back of your bulletin, you've got that, please, you can write notes down. So 4 things that we need to do. Mary identified the problem. So many times we don't really realize what the problem is. But Mary knew what the problem was. They're out of wine. Sometimes our problems could be that simple, and sometimes they're more complicated. But we need to identify the problem that is before us. If we can identify the problem, Mary had the problem before her, and what did she do with it? She brought it to Jesus. Wow, so simple. We have problems, let's take it to Jesus. Let's just give it to Jesus. She made him aware of the problem. Jesus knows all our problems, but he wants us to tell him that we're having problems. Then what did she do with the problem? She left it. It tells us she turned away. Jesus, they're out of wine, so what's that got to do with me? Do whatever he tells you to do. And back to the party she went. So many times we forget to leave our problem at Jesus' feet. We forget to say, Jesus, we've got a problem and here it is. Help me with this. Tomorrow, help me with this, Jesus, because it's still a problem. Help me with this, Jesus, because it's still a problem. We forget to leave it at the feet of Jesus and trust him. She trusted him. She trusted Jesus to take care of the problem. Are we saying when we bring it to Jesus and we leave it at his feet and then bring it up again tomorrow and the next day and the next day, are we saying, I don't trust you, Jesus? I can do this too. I can do it. I can handle my problems. And Jesus, I know I'm supposed to tell you my problems, but here they are, but I'm going to handle it myself. Instead of trusting you. Trust in the Lord. Mary gives us such a great example of what to do with our problems. Assemble our lives and the problems we face, Mary's example. The story continues. Jesus says, fill the water pots with water. They filled them to the brim. They listened to him, didn't they? We fail to listen to what Jesus tells us sometimes, but they filled them to the brim. Now, draw some out and take it to the master of the wedding. 6 jars, it tells us, were sitting there. 6 jars for Jewish celebration, washing their feet, washing their hands. They felt like, if we wash our hands and our feet, all our problems will go away. But the jars sat there and they were empty. How big were they? What does it tell us? 20 to 30 gallons. That's a big jug. That's a big jug of water. 20 to 30 gallons times 6. Okay, if you take 20 gallon times 6, a lot of gallons. Take 20 times, or takes 30 gallons times 6, that's 180. I can do 120, 180. There was a lot of wine. And he takes and gives it to the master of the ceremonies. I mean, with 120 to 180 gallon of wine, I think the bride and groom could have opened up their own winery. But the problem was presented, the prayer was answered, the crisis was avoided. All because Mary turned her problem over to Jesus and trusted him. Max Lucado, in his book, comes up with another story. This time, Mary doesn't involve Jesus. Think about if we don't involve Jesus or if we do involve Jesus. She took the master of the feast to task. Took him to task for planning. Why didn't you plan better? He took exception to her accusation, says, it's not my fault. Mary storms out of the party. The groom overhears the argument, and he loses his temper. And the bride tells her groom to forget the marriage. If you can't control your anger any better than that, how can you run a household? By the end of the day, the guests leave sad. The marriage ended before it began. And Jesus shook his head and said, I could have helped if only I'd been asked. Jesus can help if we just ask. Could it happen? Sure. Does it happen? Sure. How many disasters could be or would be averted if in faith we go to Jesus first and say, here's our problem, take care of it, and walk away in trust? If we took all of our problems to God, to Jesus, then what would happen? We'd be spending more time in prayer, right? Telling Jesus more and more about what's going on in our lives. Here, Jesus, I need you to take care of this. Here, Jesus, I got another problem. Here's another problem. My wife's got a problem. Here's her problem. And all of a sudden, you're talking to Jesus more and more. And, well, duh, that's good, right? When you spend more time in prayer talking to Jesus. Paul even gives us an example, an advice about talking to Jesus all the time. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about it. Tell God your needs and don't forget to thank him for his answers. If you do this, you will experience God's peace, which is far more wonderful than the human mind can understand. His peace will keep your thoughts and your hearts quiet and at rest as you trust in Christ Jesus. Take it to Jesus. Leave it with him. And we'll have a peace that passes understanding. We don't understand it all. But Jesus will give us a complete peace. And God keeps his word. We just need to ask. Some years ago, there was a pastor by the name of Dale Calloway. I don't know Pastor Calloway, but his wife asked him for a divorce, and he was left desolate. The day that followed, he said, were worse than death. In his dark times, he offered a prayer. I need help. He says, I practiced what I call let go and let God. He says, I took my hands, cupped them in front of me, held them up, and verbally put inside of his hands all of his problems. And then he said, there it is, God. I can't change it. I don't know what to do with it. It's all unacceptable to me. I have been fighting it. I just don't know what to do. There it is, Lord. I give it all to you. As he drops his arms to his side, he says, a wonderful peace in the midst of the storm spread across his entire being. Now he has the peace that he understands. Sometimes when the pieces don't fit together, sometimes when the wine will run out, life doesn't seem fair. These are the facts of life. Jesus responds with an invitation. Bring your problems to me, he says. State them simply. State them often. Turn around, walk away, and trust him that he'll take care of them. I don't know that guy. I don't know Pastor Dale Calloway. But I have a personal story to tell. It's happened to us, and I'm going to involve my wife in this story, and she's going to say, oh, don't do this. She's the quiet one. She's the one that sits back and doesn't say much. She's the one that sits back there and prays, oh, don't let him say something stupid. Please, Lord, don't let him say something stupid. And she said that prayer many times, I'm sure. But a few months ago, back in October, Nancy was scheduled for surgery. It wasn't going to be a difficult surgery. It was a partial, DNC. I don't understand all this stuff from the doctors. We got flooded. But it was surgery, home. Pretty simple. Recovery, 2 to 3 days. For her, 1 or 2 weeks. And multiply a day by a week because she doesn't respond real good to surgeries. But the surgeon comes in, tells us everything went fine, don't worry about it, come back and see me. She's going to be in Inola. We can come see her later in the next week. So we go in and she says everything looked fine. I don't think anything's wrong, but I'll let you know I haven't got all the tests back yet. Well, was it a day or was it that afternoon? She calls us back and the tests are back. Nancy has cancer. It's operable. It's in the uterus. No problem. We can take it out. Okay. Thank you, Lord, for taking care of that problem. They want a CAT scan before they do the surgery to make sure they know right where it's at. I don't understand all those CAT scans and PET scans. What's the difference between a dog scan and a CAT scan? I don't know. But she gets a CAT scan. I think it was first CAT scan. The CAT scan shows not only cancer in the uterus, but she's got cancer in the liver, she's got cancer in the bones, she's got cancer in the lymph nodes. Doctors all say, whoa, wait, back up. We got to find out what's going on here, so we take step 1, 2, and 3 instead of 3, 1, 2. So we wait, and in the meantime, she gets a PET scan, and it tells them what kind of cancer it is in the liver, where it's at, but it's okay, it's going to stay put. We're not going to bother that. We want to get the cancer in the uterus out. So they've taken a sample of her liver. That set her back a couple more days. I don't know if you've ever had a needle. I didn't see how long it was, but to get into your liver and take a piece of liver out of you, that was harder on her than the surgery. And then we came back and they said, go ahead and do the surgery on the uterus. So that was taken care of, but we still have the cancer in the liver, the bones. What do we do? But when I got the message, when I heard that she had cancer, I yelled at God. I said, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. This isn't the way we planned our retirement. We had a little nest egg over here, not a big nest egg. I was a preacher. You don't save a lot of money when you're a preacher. But we had some money saved back, and now it's going to take all the money to take care of her cancer. Well, as the end of the year came closer and she's recovering, she's still recovering. She gets a shot once a month. Well, she went through radiation. Gets a shot once a month in her backside. She probably doesn't tell you what everything happens there, but some days it hurts, other times it doesn't hurt so bad. And what is in it? We have no clue. It just costs over $5,000 every time they stick a needle in her rear end. plus the radiation, plus the doctor bills, plus the surgeries. So much for a nest egg. But Iowa yearly meeting, I yelled at God and I said, I don't understand this. Please explain this to me. And he told me, don't worry about it. I got it taken care of. So I laid it at Jesus' feet and I said, there it is, God. There's the problem. It's yours. Because I keep reading, my favorite verse of the scriptures is trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. I didn't understand it, but I'm trusting God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, he will acknowledge. Now I got it all messed up. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Are our paths completely straight yet? Nope. We're still going down that path that we don't understand. But I turned it over to God, and I said, I don't have to worry about it anymore. God says, give it to me. Fine. You take care of it, because I don't understand how I'm going to take care of it. I don't understand how we're going to take care of it. Yearly meeting, when you're retired out of the yearly meeting after serving as many years as I did, the yearly meeting has a fund called the Retired Pastors and Missionaries Fund. And every year they send pastors a little money to help pay for health insurance. Well, this year that money came just perfect. It paid all the bills. Well, I shouldn't say all of them. It paid a good chunk of the bills. But we still have that shot every month that's over $5,000. Now, I appreciate insurance companies. They paid a lot of the money, a lot of the bills. But when they said they okay the shot, nowhere on there does it say we okayed the bill. We still have to pay part of that bill because they say that shot's only worth $300 when the hospital says it's worth $5,000. So you only get part of the bill paid. So then we are at home and she's recovering and we get a phone call from Mercy Hospital, Mercy Counseling, I don't know what it was called. And they said, would you be opposed to applying for a grant that would pay for the medicine for her shot? And Nancy says, duh, no, what do I do? And they says, send us your signature on this piece of paper, I'll mail you. And so we sent them back some information. And so now we have a grant. God has given us a grant that pays for the chemical, the medicine that she's getting put into her. She doesn't pay for the doctor bills. It doesn't pay for the car trips to Des Moines. It doesn't pay for me doing the shopping differently than Nancy does because somehow I got regulated, demoted, I don't know what you call it, to chief cook and bottle washer. I do the laundry, I do the dishes, I do the cooking, I do the cleaning. And I'm not doing that for sympathy, don't get me wrong. I said for better or worse, for richer or poorer, and sickness and health. And we've got the sickness, got the health, we got the poor. So I figured the other day, though, she was doing pretty good. Because I was in the laundry room, just right off the bedroom, and I'm putting in jeans and her blouses and underwear, towels, whatever there is in the hamper, I'm putting in the washer. She says, don't put my blouse in there with your jeans. Oh, she's feeling better now. So she's back to doing the laundry, more of it than I was. I still get them out of the dryer and fold them. She has lost 40 pounds. Wouldn't hurt all of us to lose 40 pounds, I'm sure, and I'm speaking for myself, but I don't want to lose it the way she had to lose it. She had to eat my cooking. She says, no, that wasn't it, but I do thank the Lord every day for frozen pizzas. I've even got to the point I can make biscuits and gravy. Believe it or not, I can fix biscuits and gravy. You know, Pillsbury has this tube that you pull on the end and pop. All you have to do is put them on a plate, put them in the oven, bake them for 15 minutes. You got biscuits. And the gravy comes in a bag, and you cut it open, and it says put in a cup of boiling water, and I can boil water, mix it together, and it makes the gravy. Hey, the Lord takes care of all of us, and some of us dummies he takes even better care of. So have I given it completely to God? I think I have. I think Nancy has. The doctor told her this cancer is not going to kill you. You'll get run over by a truck before this cancer will ever kill you. But does that mean she just quits her treatments and go on with life? No, she still takes the treatments because it can destroy the liver. It can destroy the bones. So we keep going back for more shots and more blood tests. And you might pray for me on the way home. She might yell at me a little bit because she's a much more private person than I am. I put it on Facebook when she was having her problem, when we found out we had cancer, and she's, what'd you do that for? And I says, because I want people praying for us. And the response was huge. The number of people that now know. We've had food brought in. We've had gift cards given to us. And I know that the food brings in because people feel sorry for her, and they bring food in that she'll eat. And we go uptown and buy food every once in a while because they give us a gift card to the local Houston's restaurant. But I think I'm like Mary. We've identified the problem. We brought the problem to Jesus. We laid it at his feet. And we trust him to take care of it. What does that lead for us tomorrow? We don't know. But when the Lord's in charge, why worry about it? Thank you for letting me share our story and also share the story of Mary.